Hello everyone, my name is Chuwamba Anastasia Mwank, and I'm going to be presenting a TED Talk style pitch for my group, The Click. So imagine this, you walk into a pharmacy after a long day, you have a prescription in your hand, you're tired and you just want to collect your medication and go home. But then you look ahead, there's a line and you have to wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Now imagine that from the pharmacist's perspective. Every person in that line represents something much more than just a number. It represents the prescription that has to be read correctly, the dose that has to be checked, and the possible drug interactions that need to be considered. So here's the question. What if making a pharmacy faster can actually make it less safe? And more importantly, what if we didn't have to choose between speed and safety? That is the problem my team and I are set to solve. So let's talk about the problem. Community pharmacies can be extremely crowded, especially during peak hours when patients are trying to collect their medicine, their repeated prescriptions. Patients want their medication quickly, but pharmacists cannot simply rush through the process. They need to read the prescription, select the correct medicine, verify the dose, consider safety, and provide appropriate counseling. And our team has identified this fundamental problem. The faster we dispose medication, the shorter the patient's waiting time, but the greater the potential risk for giving out errors. On the other hand, slowing down improves the opportunity to carefully check the medication and increase waiting time, which will reduce patient satisfaction. So our challenge is not simply just how fast pharmacies need to work, but how we might reduce waiting time without compromising medication accuracy, workflow efficiency, and patient safety. That becomes our reframed design thinking problem. So how to seek the problem through the patient's eyes? So we need to understand the problem when we look at it beyond the pharmacy counter. First, the patient arrives and then they submit their prescription. They wait a while for the prescription to be processed and the medication to be allocated and prepared. Then it needs to be checked. Finally, the pharmacists provide the necessary safety check and counseling before the medication reaches the patient. From the patient's perspective, this can seem time wasting, taking too long, they just want their medication. But from the pharmacist's perspective, they cannot afford to do anything wrong. And this is where empathy comes and becomes important. The patient wants convenience, while the pharmacist is trying to be accurate. But needs are valid. Our solution, therefore, is that we need to improve the experience of the patient without removing safety responsibilities of the pharmacist. So this is now when the contradiction happens. This is where our project moves from design thinking to TRES. TRES is a systematic approach to innovation that helps us solve problems where improving one characteristic causes another characteristic to become worse. In our case, improving perimeter, which is speed, worsens the perimeter of accuracy and reliability. This is where the contradiction happens. If we increase the speed and waiting time, then decreases. But if we increase the speed by simply rushing through the process, then the accuracy will decrease. So instead of asking how we can make pharmacists work faster, we should ask how can we redesign the system the pharmacists do not have to uh, do everything the same way, right? So now we're going to break it into parts. So our team identified several principles to help us resolve this contradiction. And the first one is preliminary action. Instead of waiting until the patient arrives, certain tasks can happen beforehand. For example, common use of medications like and repeated prescriptions can be prepared before they come to be collected. The next one we considered is segmentation. Instead of one person performing one part of the process, um, the task can be divided, right? And the pharmacy assistants can handle certain tasks that they're authorized to perform. And then technicians can help prepare the medications, and the pharmacists can focus on what requires their professional expertise, which is making the final clinical safety check and consulting their patients. Intermediary, which is the third one, this is when technology can assist the process. For example, electronic prescriptions, barcode verification, and disposing software and automated queues. And finally, self-service can allow patients to submit prescriptions electronically before arriving. These principles allow us to attack the bottleneck rather than simply asking people to work faster. Our big idea. This led us to our proposed solution, an integrated pharmacy disposing system. This idea combines three components. One, online prescription submissions. Two, this allows patients to submit the prescriptions before arriving. Two, task segmentation and preliminary preparation. The pharmacy team can begin appropriate preparation before patients reach the counter. Three, barcode verification. Before disposing the medication, it can be scanned to help verify the correct medication that has been selected. Then the pharmacist perform the final safety check and counseling. So instead of long processes happening only after the patient arrives, we can create a system where appropriate tasks can happen before, during, and after arrival, with technology supporting accuracy. The goal isn't to replace pharmacists, but to give pharmacists more time to do what only they can do. We'll talk about the prototype and testing. But an idea is not just innovation simply because it sounds good. It needs to be tested. Our proposed system can be introduced to a small pilot rather than immediately changing the entire pharmacy system. We can test it in a controlled setting. We would compare three things: waiting time, dispensing error and selection error, and patient and staff feedback. If waiting time decreases while the accuracy is maintained or improved, that produces evidence that the system is moving in the right direction. If patients find the online system difficult to use, it tells us something else. If staff experience new bottleneck, that tells us something else too. Testing is not about improving what is the first idea, that the first idea is perfect. It is about discovering how the idea can be made better. I'm going to talk about the challenges. So of course, no innovation comes without challenges. Our solution would require investment in barcode scanners, software, staff training, and system integration. There are also important considerations around patient data privacy and security. Not and not just every patient may have equal access to the digital services. Our solution should not just create a new barrier while trying to remove the old one. This is important. This is why implication should be gradual. Start from a small pilot, train the staff, evaluate the results, improve the system, then scale it. The goal is not technology for the sake of technology, but the goal is pharmacy systems that are faster, safer, and easier to use. Now I'll talk about the impact. If successful, this system could create benefits for everyone involved. For patients, less waiting time and greater convenience. For pharmacists, less pressure and more time for clinical responsibilities, and improved workflow and productivity. The greater, most importantly, greater medication safety. Our team, our team's project therefore addresses more than a queue. It addresses how healthcare services can use creative innovation to improve and experience both patient and healthcare professionals. Can improve experiences of both the patient and healthcare professionals. And this connects directly to the idea of improving healthcare quality and patient safety. So, in conclusion, our product started with a contradiction: speed versus safety. But through design thinking, we focused on the needs of the people involved. And through TRIZ, we stopped trying to choose between the two. Instead, we redesigned the system. Online prescription submissions, preliminary preparation, task segmentation, and barcode verification. The pharmacist led final safety checks. Together, these ideas can move community pharmacies closer to an ideal system. Less waiting time, fewer opportunities of error, better workflow, safer patient care. So the next time you see a long pharmacy queue, perhaps the question should not be, how can we make people work faster? It should be, how can we design the system to work smarter? Because innovation in healthcare isn't about choosing between efficiency and safety, it is about designing a future where we can have both. Thank you for your time.